but one was supposed to come tonight. I was hoping he came. The other one would probably be on Sunday. But yeah, both, you know, the guy almost sounded like the guy maybe that you had talked to.
Maybe. I gave him the cards.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds when he talked to me and said some of the things.
Yep.
Yeah. And the other guy's name was Samuel Q. Yeah.
It's a blessing. I mean.
But he lives all the way up in Rogers Park.
Yeah, it's nice to talk to people.
You talk to people who call the church?
No, your friend from Grace School of the Bible, Michael McCaskey. Boy, he was hard on grace believers today. He was just.
Yeah.
Really, why? I mean, because you think about it, as human beings, there's so much stuff that you can go through in life where you just know you fall. I mean, you just know you fall, even knowing you fall. But you can always just think and remember the doctrine that God, our Father, that sin, where sin abound, grace did. It takes such a burden off you spiritually. You're just like, you know, God, I know I messed up, but man, Christ died for those sins. And then you can just straighten up and then keep going. You know, you don't have to. That's the best thing.
When does this guy come on?
He comes on at 6 o'clock on Wednesdays.
On what channel?
KY Access.
I have AT&T cable, so I don't.
Yeah, well, that's what I have also.
And he was in Great School of Bible?
He was in Great School of the Bible. And he was saying
what does he preach now? What does he preach now?
I don't know what he's preaching. It was on when I came in from work.
It's a blessing to me to learn all this.
That's the only
And he was saying that he was in dispensationalism for a long time, and it's more than one God. It's not but one gospel in the Bible, and the dispensationalist has it wrong. There's only one gospel. They go off on the tangent with that.
Does he say how he got to this point, why he changed?
I would like to know that and have him show.
He probably never embraced it. Once I see the guy, you can tell when people get it.
And it's amazing how
he has some right division points.
I was in the Word, but didn't understand right division. I was confused. I was like,
that's what I was.
Confused. One had so many questions.
Right. Yeah.
And then from rightly dividing, you see it does nothing but just clear everything.
Right.
But see, that's what makes
that's amazing.
Without right division, the Bible contradicts itself.
It's all over.
It does. Without right division, that's what made me embrace grace, because without right division, man.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I was started with for Sunday, for 2 Timothy 2:15. Because if you don't rightly divide it, you can get messed up.
You get contradictions back and forth.
Pastor Jordan said on his radio program, the worst thing you can do is be scriptural and not dispensational, because you can screw people up and yourself. It's deadly doctrine.
I can see how he could have been in Great School of Bible and turn around and say that.
You have sometimes people come in, spy out.
That's true.
Yeah,
it's a matter of faith too.
It's Michael McCaskey.
That's very.
No,
this is another.
Remember the guy that likes to hug?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And I'm wondering if that was him. And if he's the one that got married.
He's on television.
You know what?
But he's kind of real tight way to wear his hair.
Right, going to the back, grease down.
Yeah, suit.
Yeah.
So if that's him, then that.
Mike, you gotta tape it if we don't get that chance.
You know what? It's still a matter of faith, though. I mean, it's your heart faith, because, Paul. I mean, you can have people. I was doing some study, and there were some people who were in that doctrine in the church. Where Timothy and they would just be out there and contradict what Paul.
And there was a lot of people that would just, don't like a very definitive statement or definitive position. Yeah. So they do everything they can to try to contradict and find fault with what's being taught, and they refuse to believe it just simply because of a certain person says it's that way.
And in doing the research, there was Jesus. He would ask people. He says, "Now you know what the law says about this. How do you interpret? Tell me how you." Then he say, "You err when you say that. it'll be the same thing that he's reading, or, you know, he'll say, how do you read that? And they'll say, well, I read it this way. Or Jesus said, you err in your interpretation of the scriptures. And then he'll show them what it really meant. And that it could be that way, you know, because
he almost said, let the words on the page say what they mean to me, and then, you know, he corrected us. Yeah.
Boy, it was a blessing to me to learn, because I was confused. You know, you try and don't read, but you all confused and stuff.
Yeah. I'd like you to clarify something for me. Are we Gentiles today? Because I thought, and I don't want to misquote, because I believe that in a couple Sundays ago you said we were not. And I know that, did you hear that? Yeah, he said we're not. And, you know, I know that from the biblical point of view, we would be, or we would have, because we're not Jews. So.
But you as a member of the body of Christ now is a new creature.
Okay.
You remember Paul writes, in the body, there's neither male nor female,
Jews or Greek.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Because I was reading in another place now, in Corinthians, when he says that they was about them being Gentiles, I'm not, were they Gentiles or weren't they Gentiles? And Paul is talking about once being in the body.
Right.
So you're a Gentile if you're not a Jew, but then once you're in the body, and that was only then for the Kingdom program. Gentiles and Jews were only for the Kingdom program.
And the verse that I think of that made me say that would have been Ephesians 4, walk not as other Gentiles walk.
Right. And know we not, there's another, what's that verse says, we know, he says, we now know no man after the flesh.
Right, yea, though we know Christ after the flesh. But see, when you look at the world as a whole, God sees humanity as Gentiles today. Just humanity in essence, as Gentile. Because, and the reason for that is so that Israel no longer has any claim to a dispensational advantage. Right. And so,
Romans 3.
right, God concluded him in all in unbelief that he might have mercy upon all.
For there's no difference.
Right.
So he sees everyone as Gentiles except the body of Christ.
Right. And when he calls out from amongst them, you understand you still have the distinctions.
Oh yeah.
Physical distinctions.
Oh yeah.
But God isn't dealing with us on the basis of those distinctions.
Right.
So the physical Jew, like the people I see who go Jewish parents, they already go back fleshly to Abraham.
Right.
And the people over in the Middle East, Israel, there's a physical distinction nationality-wise. They're Jews.
Right.
But as far as being on
He doesn't deal with
Isn't it the way God see an individual once he in the body? Because Paul says, know ye that ye were Gentiles, carried away, were in the sense that the way God view you from this point on, is that not that the person changed.
Right.
When Abraham became a Hebrew, nothing changed physically about Abraham. It's just because of the position that God had
and
placed
they
him.
that made them what they were was the relationship that God entered into.
Right,
After
not any physical.
I heard a guy on television today, he was making a big deal about what's going on over in Israel. And it's funny, you can get that. You can get carried away with that. You know, they watch what's going on in Israel, and this, that, and the other. Yeah, and until you understand the scriptures, you have to displace yourself from that, because you can get caught up. Preachers are saying, the Lord is coming soon, and they look at around at what's going on now and try to, pinpoint and dictate what's, If you look hard enough, some of the stuff went on in Genesis. It's the same stuff that goes on now, Yeah.
All right. Let's do this. Let's look at 2 Timothy 3:12. And you remember Sunday I was talking to you from this verse about the subject of godly living. And basically it was just a textual treatment of the verse itself. And that's what I want to do. We just take a look at it and walk down through it here and see what we see. Now, when Paul says, yea, and all that will live godly in Christ Jesus, you see that as a continuation of him saying to Timothy, thou hast fully known my doctrine, my manner of life, my purpose, my faith, my long suffering. And he talks about the persecution and the affliction which came unto him. And he's reminding, yea, and all that will, what? Live godly in Christ Jesus shall suffer persecution. And in other words, you see what is happened to me as a result of what I've been doing. Well, and by the way, that's a good way if you really want to get an understanding of what godly living is, or living godly is. He sets it forth there for you. All you have to do is observe Paul to know and understand what it is to live godly. And I really think people have a real misconception about godly living. There's this issue of piety, being pious. And most people take that and want to use that more from a religious way. It's about how you look. It's about how you walk. It's having that religiosity, that air of being holy and sanctified.
Mike and I talked about that woman who came in. She was probably looking for theirs. Remember a few weeks back? And she sat through it. And then Mike said, "You gonna come back next week?" She says, "I'll see." And then she was like, "God bless you. God bless you." Real religious like. Yeah. It was so funny. We tripped out on that. And that's what it was. I think so. Yeah. She was like, God bless. She's real religious. And me and Mike, we spotted that. We was like, you could be yourself, be real. God wants you to be real.
Be yourself. But godly living, again, when he say, yea, all that will live godly, well, what does he just got through telling you? He says, thou hast fully known my doctrine, my manner of life, my purpose. If you want to know what godly living is, Paul is the pattern. You see, and that's one of the things that the major point I made this past Sunday, he's the pattern. Okay? But when he says, yea, and all that will live godly, the thing that struck me about that as I sit and I kind of studied it out a little bit was the idea to take delight in or to have pleasure in. Okay. All that will live. See, Paul delighted. He said, for me to live is Christ. You're talking about being enthusiastic, being excited about living to the glory of God. Yeah. That was Paul.
And you said something. You said taking it in as opposed to Paul gloried in the Lord.
Yes.
And it's a different. You can take it in, or you can just live it and live it to the full. Paul, that's what you said.
The contrast there is just, and I'll tell you. Our Christian life, the way we approach it sometimes, and maybe most often than not, it's a drudgery. It's like a real chore. It's a real challenge. There's no real excitement. There's no real enthusiasm. You get up and it's like, well, here's another day. And Paul, for Paul, it was another opportunity to get out and let your light shine. Paul says whether it be by, look at Philippians. I do this. You're right. I do this too often. I quote the verses and I don't often let you get to look at them.
So you're saying instead of, some Christians, you get up and it's like you said, a drudgery kind of, okay, God, help me through this. And Paul's like, thank you for giving me another day to go.
Yeah, he's excited. He
can't serve you.
He can't wait.
Yeah, that's what you want.
And what I'm trying to suggest to you, that's what's involved in that expression, all that will live godly.
Right.
You see.
It's not advocating the perfection of the individual.
It's the willingness, though, don't you?
It's just.
The perfecting of the saints. The perfecting of the saints.
I was going to say.
It's the perfecting of the individual, them and they.
Oh yeah, the growth, the maturation. That's what you're talking about.
No. You know how some people have the understanding of being saved. Means to have a lifestyle that has no